All right, welcome to The Explainer. We're jumping right into a huge story today, a plan that's looking to completely rewire the American economy. We're talking about a massive gamble, a flood of cash, a total energy overhaul, and this idea of a giant wall of tariffs. It's a massive experiment, and honestly, it could have consequences for every single one of us.
So you just heard this quote about flooding the market. And really, the core idea is pretty simple. Inject a ton of cash, what economists call liquidity, straight into the U.S. economy. This isn't just a small trickle. It's a coordinated push that some are calling an economic flood, all designed to kickstart growth on a scale we really haven't seen in a long, long time.
Okay, so what does this flood actually look like? I mean, what are we really talking about here? Well, it's not just one thing. It's a whole strategy playing out on multiple fronts. You've got these huge tax cuts, a complete reset of energy policy, and some really aggressive new rules on trade. The idea is that each of these pieces is meant to work together. It's a seriously high-stakes experiment.
All right, let's break this down. The first wave of this cash flood, well, it's the most direct one. The plan kicks off by putting money straight into the pockets of millions of Americans, and, businesses too. And the way they're doing it, they're using the tax system as the delivery truck, basically. And get this, we're talking about a potential $500 billion. The reason it's so big is because of some retroactive tax cuts that were passed back in the middle of 2025. So what does retroactive mean here? It means that for months, Americans were actually having too much tax taken out of their paychecks without realizing it. And now? Well, the stage is set for what could be the largest tax refund season ever, potentially unleashing all that cash back into the economy at once.
So these are the big changes driving that giant refund season. You've got bumps to the standard deduction, the child tax credit, a new deduction for seniors, a whole list. But here's the key part, the detail that makes it all happen at once. Payroll systems just couldn't adjust to these changes halfway through the year. So what happened? Millions of people just kept overpaying their taxes week after week. And now all that extra money they paid is set to come back to them in one giant lump sum.
Okay, so that's the cash injection from tax refunds. Now let's move on to the next major pillar of this whole strategy, because it all builds on itself. We're talking about a fundamental reset of America's energy policy. The goal here is to create what the administration is calling energy abundance.
And a big piece of this energy puzzle is Venezuela. I mean, they're sitting on something like 17% of the world's proven crude oil reserves. After a U.S. military intervention there, the administration announced a plan to get a hold of 30 to 50 million barrels of that Venezuelan crude.
Now, the official goal here isn't just to buy the oil. It's about encouraging U.S. companies to pour billions of dollars into rebuilding Venezuela's oil infrastructure, which has been falling apart for years. If this works, it's a huge deal. It could totally reshape global energy markets by bringing a massive new supply of oil online.
But, it's not that simple. You've got experts, like the former head of BP, John Brown, who are pumping the brakes a little bit. He's pointing out that, yeah, it's a nice idea, but reviving an entire nation's oil industry, that's going to take a ton of time and an incredible amount of money. It's not a quick fix.
Okay, so that's the international picture. But what's happening back home? Well, there's a new executive order that's trying to unleash American energy production with this policy called zero-based regulation. It's a pretty radical idea. In simple terms, it forces a complete reset of all the existing rules. Every single energy regulation is on the clock. If a government agency can't justify it and prove it's still needed, right now, poof, it's gone. It just automatically expires.
And to really drive home this whole push for energy abundance, the administration also wants to refill the nation's emergency oil supply, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, all the way to the top. This is a big deal because it's a complete reversal of the recent trend where we've been draining that reserve. So it's a pretty significant policy shift.
All right, so we've covered the tax refunds and the energy plan, but there's more. The strategy also includes other, even more direct ways to get cash into the economy and to put pressure on the Federal Reserve.
So there's this new program being rolled out called Trump accounts. It's a pretty interesting idea. The whole point is to try and create a new generation of investors. How? The government is going to directly put $1,000 into a stock account for kids born in a certain time frame. The only catch is that money has to be invested in funds that track U.S. stock indexes.
Then there's another idea for getting money directly to people. It's called a tariff dividend. The proposal is to send checks up to $2,000 to most Americans. And where does the money come from? It would be paid for with the revenue from new taxes on imported goods. It's important to note, though, this one still has to get through Congress.
And this might be the most controversial piece of the whole puzzle.
We're seeing this growing public pressure campaign aimed squarely at the Federal Reserve. The administration is pushing and pushing hard for the Fed to slash interest rates, to make money cheaper and fuel the economy even more. This is setting up a major showdown, really a potential power struggle over the independence of the nation's central bank.
Which brings us perfectly to the final piece of this economic strategy, what some are calling an America First fortress, built on a really aggressive expansion of tariffs.
So here's the plan. A new 10% tariff on basically all goods coming into the country. And on top of that, a much, much steeper 60% tariff aimed specifically at everything coming from China. The goals here are pretty clear. First, make American-made products more competitive. And second, raise a bunch of money to pay for things like that tariff dividend we just talked about.
Okay, but a policy this big has to have a trade-off, right? What's the potential downside? Well, to get an idea, we can look at what the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office found. They're the official scorekeepers in Washington, and they ran the numbers.
And the CBO's forecast is, well, it's a classic mixed bag. It's some good news and some bad news. The good news? They project these tariffs would slash the federal deficit by almost $3 trillion. That's a huge number. But the bad news? They also predict it would come at a cost. The overall U.S. economy would actually shrink, and regular people would face higher prices because of inflation.
Now, an agenda this ambitious was never going to just sail through, right? It's not happening in a vacuum. It's hitting some pretty significant roadblocks, both political and legal, from other parts of the government.
For example, in a recent spending package, Congress basically said no to a whole bunch of these proposals. And this wasn't just one party. Lawmakers from both sides came together to block things. It was a clear message from Congress, reasserting its power over how taxpayer money gets spent on everything from merging government agencies to cutting specific programs.
And it's not just Congress. The plan is also running into trouble in the courts. Some of the executive actions, especially the one about using emergency powers to speed up energy projects, are facing major legal challenges. In fact, at least one legal analysis has come out and said these moves are, quote, not lawful.
Okay, so let's step back for a second. You put all of these pieces on the table. This massive flood of cash, the huge energy reset, the new trade walls, and then all the pushback from Congress and the courts. What does it all add up to?
Well, what it adds up to is a massive, interconnected economic gamble. That's really the only way to describe it. Every single piece is designed to reinforce the others. But at the same time, each piece carries its own huge risks. So the big question is this a coordinated masterstroke that's going to unleash a new era of American prosperity? Or is it a massive, high-stakes bet that could backfire and rewrite the rules of the global economy in ways we can't even predict? Honestly, that's one of the biggest questions out there right now.